Throughout this iteration, we were able to become more familiar with the languages and frameworks associated with our project, JavaScript, Ruby on Rails, Python, etc. We have begun adding to the existing project using these thus far. We hope to further utilize and build upon this knowledge in the next iteration. Thankfully, we would now claim to be comfortable with them.
For my particular part in this iteration report, I was in charge of the list items for making a teacher database and a room database that can be added to and modified as needed so that we have a working repository of who and where we have available for classes. I put together a test code that will modify a JSON file and append to it if you need to add a new teacher to it so that you can continually keep track of all of the teachers that you have available.
One of the main problems we had this iteration was working with the current way he has the database implemented, which is he has it hard-coded in and has all the information in JSON files. And we wanted to get an actual database to be able to make it easier and quicker to access the data we need and be able to edit it as we need it. I tried to do this through implementing SQL through Ruby on Rails directly, and I had a lot of problems with it, and it ended up not working out in the end.
So as each of us were trying our various different ways to make the transition from JSON files to a database, I followed an online tutorial as shown here. This was after researching several other avenues. Conferencing with Dr. Gnad. This was the option that seemed the best, as it allows you to create a local host database, which will work well for preliminary testing. I was unable to make it work, but Ian was. My task was to complete story points 24 and 25, which is, respectively, historical enrollment for a course and display which professors have taught a specific course. So in order to query this, we needed a database. Justin found a online program that allowed us to upload our JSON files and run queries in a simulated database. I was able to do a simulated database and figure out the queries that would be needed. So once we have this permanent database set up, it'll be a simple matter to transfer the queries we learned into the web interface and create from there. And I'll let Ian talk about what he did, how he was able to accomplish setting up the permanent database. In addition to these story points and my research on databases, I completed the necessary Ruby, JavaScript, and Python learning spikes.
So for this iteration, I took off from where Wallace was having issues with the MySQL server. I worked through his errors to get the MySQL server running on localhost. And then I worked through our Python script to connect to that database and upload the JSON information into the MySQL database. I ran into multiple issues along the way. Several tutorials made it seem like it was supposed to be easier than it was, but eventually I ended up hard coding a lot of the parsing of the JSON file into MySQL and making it work that way.
So for this iteration, while the teammates were working on trying to figure out SQL database and how to run queries on them, I was looking through the JSON file and seeing how things are hard-coded and how things were stored in database. And with that, I was also working with UI, and I also added some buttons where you can see room usage by week and room usage by day. And I also added a space for room where you can enter a room number. And these functions and buttons are not currently working, but since we have database working where we can get the data, we are looking forward to finishing these functions, and they should be working in next iteration.